Those few senior officers who knew where the men were going were confident.
Our battalion commander comes out and says, men, we're going down to rescue some people. He says it shouldn't take more than a weekend. We should be right back here. He says, I don't really foresee any problems with it. Told us that we were facing a force of about 1,700 individuals. Some of them regular Army, some of them mostly comprised of a National Guard force. He said he didn't see any reason why it should be all that complicated. We should be in and out, no problem whatsoever. So after that, you know, we're all looking at each other. He still hasn't said where we're going, why we're going, just that we're going somewhere and we're going to run across some resistance. Some of you will come home, possible chance some of you won't. So we're all kind of looking at each other and we're all trying to basically figure out where are we going. You know, are we going to Lebanon? Are we going to Nicaragua, El Salvador? Where are we going? No one said anything yet. Well, I was sitting next to the weapons platoon leader, and I was asking him, I said, you know, what's basically going on? He says, I really don't know myself, to tell you the truth. He says, if I can tell you this, I don't think you have much to worry about.
The Deputy Task Force Commander for the Grenada operation was three-star Army General Norman Schwarzkopf.
The intelligence we had on hand about the enemy was 1,200 People's Revolutionary Army of Grenada, another couple of hundred, 200 to 400 police force, and the information we had that as the Army went, so would go the police. 600 Cubans of unknown capability, Cuban workers with some military trainers and augmentation within them. The enemy had been portrayed as ill-equipped, poorly organized, and probably not capable of any resistance. At the first shots fired, would throw down their weapons and run. Quite specifically, it was assumed that the Cubans wouldn't fight. You have to understand that the original plan envisioned everything being over by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
At precisely 5:37 on the morning of October 25th, the Army's 75th Rangers began parachuting onto the runway at Point Salinas. Operation Urgent Fury was underway. Every branch of the American Armed Forces would soon be in combat. But the invasion of Grenada was in trouble within minutes. The original plan was not working. What was it like for the first wave of men parachuting?
You have to visualize literally a cone of tracer fire, green tracer fire, coming up into the air. C-130 aircraft flying in directly underneath this cone of tracer fire, paratroopers dropping in the air and then being shot at in the air from all sides on the ground. I can't recall any combat operation that the United States has ever been involved in that could have been any more intense than that, and that's probably the most intense type of combat that we've ever been involved in. In other words, for those Rangers that were hanging in those parachutes in the air at that time, that was absolute total war.
There had been a stunning failure. American lives were being lost because somehow the intelligence agencies had been unable to tell the battlefield commanders what they needed to know about the enemy.
If we had known that the anti-aircraft was going to be as effective as it was, we would have suppressed it ahead of time with fire. We really didn't have good intelligence on their ability as anti-aircraft gunners. Quite the contrary, we've been led to believe that they were lousy. We had not suppressed the anti-aircraft fire. And of course, what happened is a lot of the helicopters took hits right off the bat.
Reports of heavy fighting had reached the White House when President Reagan, accompanied by Eugenia Charles, Prime Minister of Dominica, went on television to announce the invasion.
Early this morning, forces from 6 Caribbean democracies and the United States began a landing or landings on the island of Grenada in the Eastern Caribbean. The United States objectives are clear: to protect our own citizens, to facilitate the evacuation of those who want to leave, and to help in the restoration of democratic institutions in Grenada.
The Rangers secured the airstrip by 11 a.m., and the 82nd Airborne began arriving in force. The situation on the ground was confused.
When we landed, the tailgate dropped down, and we all ran out. They couldn't have had too great of intelligence because, like I said, they didn't know where we were going or what we were going to do. We got there, they told us, move over here, so we all ran over here and kind of set up a little hasty perimeter so the company makes it to a formation to hold a piece of ground, more or less. And then they said, no, we don't want to be here, we want to be over here. So we go over to this side of the area, we sat there for about 10, 15 minutes. No, they want us back up here now. They handed us out tourist maps when we got there. And, I mean, no grid coordinates. And I don't know if you should know that when you have to make indirect fire calls for mortar fire or aircraft fire or any type of support fire that we would need from artillery or whatnot, you need to have a grid coordinate to precisely land that shell. Otherwise, there's a chance of making some of us the casualties of our own actions. Well, they handed us these tourist maps, and we had no way to direct anything from these maps. They had points of interest. Fine, if I was on a 7-day vacation and I wanted to go see Grand Anse Harbor or go visit the Windsor Estate Nutmeg Plantation, that'd been great. But if I got a call in for artillery fire, I'm like, well, just direct that 300 meters left of this point of interest we have here on the map.
The publisher of the Armed Forces Journal is a West Point graduate, Ben Schemmer.
How can you let an operation be planned for 3 days on an island that the president has identified, what, 7 months before in March or April of that year as of strategic interest and concern to the United States of America, and not have the youngsters invading it or assaulting it or liberating it have available to them before they go face gun barrels, maps of the island? It's unconscionable.
This map, passed out to American forces, was published in 1978 by the Grenada Tourist Board.
And according to the Commander-in-Chief Atlantic After Action Report, unfortunately, the Defense Mapping Agency was not tasked to produce the maps until 25 October, primarily because of OPSEC, or operational security considerations, and these high-quality maps did not arrive on Grenada until the operation was largely over. That strikes me as being a cruel disconnect.
The map showed just one site for the medical school. The campus, called True Blue, was located only a few hundred yards from the airport.
By the end of D-Day, we had gone to the True Blue campus, gotten there to rescue the students, and found out that most of the students weren't there, they were someplace else. And the enemy was between us and where they were.
And you hadn't known that before you hit
Had not known that. All the information we had was the students were at True Blue Medical Campus. That was the objective.
Can you give me your reaction when you learned that?
Oh, I was shocked, stunned. There's no other word for it. I mean, the Rangers burst in the door, sort of, if it had been a Hollywood movie, it would have kind of gone like this. The Rangers broke through the door and said, ta-da, we're here, you're rescued. And the students said, yeah, but what about the rest of us, And the Rangers said, what do you mean about the rest of us? They say, oh, we're the small campus. They're all located someplace else. I mean, you can imagine the shock.
The 138 students at the True Blue campus were rescued by early afternoon. But by nightfall, when the operation was to have been completed, more than 450 students were still on the island.
When I learned that the invading forces did not have knowledge of our second campus, that it even existed, let alone its location, I was angry. I was angered not only by the fact that I had personally visited Washington, shown them a map, located both campuses, told them the numbers of students at each campus, but also over the weekend I had asked the State Department people if they would like me to ask the students to stay on the campus, knowing that they might, for some military or any other reason, want that to happen later on.
Further back over here, they'll have to draw another small house right here.
There was specific intelligence available at the State Department and the CIA about the location of all the medical students. But that intelligence never reached Grenada. It was up to the rescued students to supply the information. Did you ever establish why the intelligence never got where it should go?
It's one of the most frustrating experiences I've had, because I've asked everybody in the chain of command, I've asked the CIA, we do not have yet a straight answer as to why we did not have that intelligence in the right hands. The intelligence community says we knew about it, we had the intelligence. The troops who went in and were responsible for the operation clearly demonstrated to us that they never got that information. So there was a fundamental breakdown in communications between the intelligence community and the customers of that intelligence, that is, the troops who had to have it to perform their mission.
The search for the remaining students began. It was a priority assignment for the 82nd Airborne, but their mission bogged down in the heat and the steep hills just beyond the airport.
The main point that a lot of people never understood about Grenada, if, for instance, the Cubans there, or if the Grenada government and military forces had decided they wanted to execute those students that were the primary focus of the mission, the way we carried out that rescue mission or invasion would have allowed them to do so had they chosen to. In other words, the invasion itself could have dismally failed if our adversary had chosen to execute those students, because a number of those students were under the guns of the Cubans and the Grenadan forces for something like 24 to 48 hours in that time frame before they were ever rescued at all.
At the main campus of the medical school, 224 students remained hidden, with no one between them and the Cuban and Grenadian troops in the surrounding hills.
From the time the shooting started that morning, we thought it would be just minutes until we were going to be evacuated from the campus. The first noises we heard in the morning were the forces wiping out the Radio Free Grenada station, which was about 200 yards down the road from the Grand Anse campus. We waited on the campus for 36 hours. During that time, I honestly feel that had any of the Grenadians or the Cuban people wanted to take us hostage or injure us in any way, they had every opportunity to do so.
One thing I think that had crossed all our minds at one time or another was that because the sides were so unbalanced, is that the Grenadians would just make a last-ditch effort and just start grabbing students as hostages. And that's one thing that I think all of us had thought about at one time or another, especially at night.
In case of a revolution or an invasion, when you're in your insurmountable odds, what do? You'd figure you'd take hostages. Not one student was taken hostage at all during the whole thing, at any time. Not one student was harmed by any of the Grenadian people. The one thing we were afraid of the most, that a couple of people have made points here today about, is that if I was scared about being caught in the whole thing. I was scared about this. I might have been caught. I was scared that it was an unstable situation and I would get hurt. But in the course of it, no one was harmed. No one was touched. Even when the invasion started, no one was touched by the Grenadian people. In fact, we saw one near miss of a student getting hurt, and that was by an errant U.S. bomb. So,
I think the key question isn't were we in danger or not after the Americans came in. I think we were. I mean, whether it was because somebody might have taken us hostage, or whether it was that one of the errant U.S. bombs might have accidentally killed us, or machine gun fire. The question is whether the Americans, our country, put us in more danger by invading.